Shalom. I'm Pastor Matt McEwen from Yeshivat Shuvu and KosherPastor.com, and I'd like to invite you once again this week for another dive into the weekly Torah portion. But today we're going to look at an interesting verse in chapter 12, verse 4, where God instructs the people through Moses not to do like other nations, not to do the things that the other nations are doing that are being an affront to God. God gives them specific instructions to tear down their altars, their temples, their sacred poles, and things like this. And he gives them a specific instruction not to treat God this way, not to do this to their God. Rashi brings down that Rabbi Ishmael has an interesting statement about this, and it's not that, God forbid, any Jew would ever tear down the altar of God or tear down the temple of God. That just wouldn't be done. But in a very interesting object lesson, Rabbi Ishmael says that by our actions, we can actually be tearing down the temple of God. Well, this got me thinking about the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Because as we know, the sages tell us that this temple was destroyed because of what's known as sinat chinam, or baseless hatred. It's not that the Jewish people were ripping down the altar or ripping down the temple. Chas v'chalila, God forbid. But with their actions of baseless hatred, in a way, they were responsible for that destruction of the temple. And in that way, they were tearing it down by their actions. Now, the sages tell us that the temple will be rebuilt because of ahavat chinam, or baseless love. You see, it was because of the baseless hatred between one Jew to another that the temple was destroyed. At the time of Yeshua, everyone had a lot of Torah knowledge. It's just a mistake to say that it was a dark spiritual time in the first century, just before the destruction of the temple. Quite the opposite. But the problem was, they were knowing the Torah with their head, but that didn't spill over into actions with their fellow man. The people had a lot of Bible knowledge, but that wasn't translating into action with each other. Let this be a lesson to us. We would never tear down the things of God or be disrespectful to something of the Lord. But by our actions, if we're not careful, if we act like the nations who are godless pagans, then in a way, we are being an affront to our God. We are tearing down the altar of God. Think about this in your life. As we go through our day-to-day lives, what are our actions doing? We are also told by the Lubavitcher Rebbe that this word see in the first verse of the Torah portion tells us that Moses is giving the people the knowledge that they have the spiritual ability to perceive between a blessing and a curse. And the Rebbe goes on to say something very interesting, and that is that evil things that people do are merely something that God made good that has been perverted, or in his words, transmutated. And that it's our job, as we do tikkun olam in the world, to warp that back into shape, to take what has been good and perverted and then somehow make a tikkun, a rectification, and force that back into the shape that God created it. I think that's a wonderful lesson for all of us, because as you and I know, Judaism is a faith of action. It's a faith of doing something. So with these two ideas, tikkun olam, we must also have the idea of tikkun nefesh, of working on ourselves. So let's take these two ideas from Rav Ishmael and also the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and let's put these two ideas together. Let's work on our actions to make sure that we're not doing anything that is being a destructive force against God and his kingdom. But then let's also make a tikkun with those things that we see in the world around us, so that we can make a rectification and bring back that divine spark that's hidden there under what we call the klipa, the shell. Let's bring things back to the way God intended it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and pray that the Lord would be with you in everything that you are doing. If you'd like more information, please go to shuvu.tv, where you can sign up for our multi-year yeshiva. Also, you can go to kosherpastor.com, where you can sign up for our introductory course, which now has 4 classes, soon to be 6, as we'll be filming in Israel next month. Thank you, God bless you, Shalom, and Kol Tuv.